What's up, trash talkers? What's going on, Gruntworks Nation? We are here with I guess you would call it an inaugural, all right, UTEP MLS Leadership Seminar. So on the screen that you're seeing, obviously I'm the big girl. You all know who I am. But we have one currently sergeant major and three about to be sergeant majors. But in less than a week now, they will have their master's complete in leadership studies. Now, the Sergeant Majors Academy and UTEP work together to get these, awesome people master's degrees. And like I've said on the show for a year, it's the Yale, the Southwest. So they're pretty much the smartest people on the planet. Because I go there too, so I have to give it that accreditation. Anyways, they have to talk. Of course, wait, we got VTT's heartthrob. All right, JC Glick is on. He came here because he actually works for, I'm pretty much sure it's a leadership company, right?
I own a leadership company.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, own a leadership company.
Same thing.
Yeah. So no, he's here to help with the conversation and to give us some insight to what these fine young warriors are going to say. Anyways, we have Maria, Sergeant Major. Maria, I actually worked in the same department, although I never came to work, so I didn't see her. And then we have Greg. Yeah. And then we have Greg, Danny, and Pat. So what they have to do is they have to tell their leadership story. That's the requirement for UTEP for them to graduate. So when Danny and these guys asked me if I would do it on our platform, well, our platform is built to build up other veterans. So absolutely, we would do it. Not even a hesitation. So let's get on with it. And if you have any questions, all right, put it in the chat thread. Get on there, and if one of these guys hazed you at one point in their career, we'd love to hear about it. All right, so if you're watching, and maybe get some dirt on them before they graduate. Either way, no, just please keep it somewhat respectful. Trash talk respectful. We all know what that means. So no sexual jokes or anything stupid like that. But anything else, you guys can feel free to fire away at these awesome leaders. But I believe Pat is going to go first. No, is it Danny? Okay, Danny's going to go first. So again, he's going to give us his leadership story, what drives him, motivates him, what leadership characteristics. I believe in this program, we followed the Nordhaus book in the beginning, and it's got eight characteristics. So we cover one of those. So all right, Danny, what you got? Make sure you unmute first.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having us on here. This is awesome, and to be able to reach out and people can see our story. So I'll start pretty generic, but I'll start from the beginning. So I came to the Army in 2003. I'm an engineer, so back then I was a 62 series, now a 12 series. So right after graduation, literally from high school, the next morning I joined, I left for the Army. Went to basic and AIT like everybody else at Fort Leonard Wood, went off to airborne school, and then my first assignment was at Fort Bragg in the 82nd. I was there for a few years. While there, I went to did some down to Hurricane Katrina, worked on the border wall down there in Joint Task Force North. Was only there for a few years. So after my tenure at Bragg, I PCSed to my first of 3 times in Hawaii. So when I got to Hawaii, went to Iraq right away, came back, went to Afghanistan. So both those deployments, mutually, as we all know, builds leaders, builds character, gives you an opportunity to test your competencies. And it's really a unique opportunity to see what your soldiers have. The training that led up to that point, was it worthwhile? So came back from Afghanistan. That's about when I earned my undergrad in organizational management. Stayed there for a few more years, and then I PCS off back to Fort Bragg again. So Fort Bragg the second time for about 6 years. Got to go to jump master school and a bunch of other traditional troop schools. I would say probably becoming a jump master and being an active jump master for a long time was probably the most rewarding. It's probably the only time stateside where every day, someone's lives in your hands, requires, proficiency, requires a lot of training, a lot of maintenance, to be the best at your profession. So I really enjoyed that time. Did a whole bunch of JRTC and NTC rotations, more than I would like to count. JRTC, just like a deployment, you're, constantly testing your stress levels under, your leader, soldiers are always looking at you. So to be able to, operate under stress was something I always tried to, try my hardest at. But, sometimes it gets the best of you, but, you learn from those mistakes. So about 6 years at Bragg, and then I PCS to Vicenza. I was in the 173rd for a few years. While I was in the 173rd, I was the first sergeant in the BEB down there. Great time. Probably the highlight of my career was not only being a first sergeant, but being in such a great unit in the 173rd. When I was there, we did this is kind of during the time where, we were building, what's that word? I forget the name of the word now, but whatever. We were always, we did Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, Germany, France, Bulgaria, Romania, went all over Europe, constantly gone, different mission set, interoperability. That's what I was looking for, looking at interoperability with our multinational partners. So, trying to, lead through, different languages, different cultures, different beliefs throughout that theater was, it was great. It was stressful, but it was a great opportunity to really see, a different side of the Army that unfortunately most people don't get to experience. So Europe really shaped me as a leader, and I really think that was what kind of led me to get here to the academy. After Italy, went back to Hawaii again for my second time in Hawaii. At that time, I was already KD complete, so I did some time in a prime power company. So those are those guys that go out and restore power after a natural disaster. So went to typhoon in Guam, went to a hurricane response in Puerto Rico, down to Florida and Georgia. Those were different than operating, in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's your own home, right? It's your own people. So to be able to provide, some kind of support to our own people is different. It's a little different. It makes you prioritize, what's important with your own life, because it can happen to any of us, especially those of us that live in those hurricane zones, and how fast those things can come, and what can happen after a hurricane hits. So it was definitely a learning experience. And then I culminated there up at the UTEP staff. Different environment, working in staff, but showed me that larger scale stuff that I didn't see, because by this point I had been in the Army 16 years and I've only been in a company. I have still yet to be in a battalion or brigade staff. I've always been in a company up until that year and a half where I worked up with staff. So got to learn about a little bit bigger picture stuff. It was really a unique opportunity. To kind of to close, so one of the requirements, like who was the good leaders that helped us throughout the way? Honestly, I would have to say it's my wife. We got married in the morning of June 9th, 2003. I graduated high school that afternoon, and I left for the Army on June 10th. So she has literally been there the entire time. She stayed back in Hawaii while I came out here so my son can graduate from this high school, to prevent 3 high schools in 3 years. So they all, understand, the military and how it works, and me constantly being gone. They really put forth the sacrifice, and to kind of see that with my kids. My kids are really resilient. My son just got accepted into some ROTC programs out there in college in Hawaii, so he wants to come in the Army, but I'm not letting him hit the easy button. He can go enlisted, but he's gonna have to wait 4 years. He's gonna get his college degree, and we'll see what happens. So the military really molded, how I raised my kids, and for that I'm pretty grateful.
That was awesome. Did you work for old Debo out there, or was it Jones after him?
He was leaving when I got there.
Debo was, or Jones?
Jones.
Okay. Yeah.
Jones. Yeah, because I think he's down like Southcom now. I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, so what leadership characteristic or trait did you think you modeled your career about after? Because I'll go out and say it for these guys too when they come on there. But as I've been going through this program, you start to realize what you were doing in your career, but now you actually have the educational background to explain why those things worked, why they didn't, right? As opposed to, I just told them to do it. Well, it actually turned out that you were being really authentic most of the time, and that's why most of the people responded to you. So, what did you feel? What did you feel like was like your favorite characteristic you modeled your leadership after?
not knowing at the time, we hear it all the time. It's a buzzword, but there's a few out there. I really think servant leadership and followership is something that, we say that we do a lot, but what does it truly mean? So, after going through the UTEP program, understanding where servant leadership started and how it kind of began, and same thing with followership. We all serve for different reasons, but we all serve, the United States of America. So understanding that when portraying a message to soldiers, now it's that messaging. How do you get people to follow behind you, and to that followership attribute. So I would say servant leadership and followership are the two that I enjoy most reading about. I've always assumed what it meant, and then reading it in academia, it kind of gives a different perspective on it. And to conclude, just the most recent class with mindsets, that was unique. Understand that everybody's got a different mindset, and how do you dig down to the root that really what drives people, and why they made the decision they made. Because we're in the Army, we're quick to pass judgment, but everybody makes a decision for a reason. So taking the time to step back and realize, what drove them there would probably help you solve their problems.
All right, JC, anything?
Danny, so, okay, big surprise because, a guy who writes a book is going to disagree with another guy who writes a book, but I've written two, so I'm going to go with that. I'm going to tell you that I hate the term servant leadership. Hate it. And I hate the term followership. Because,
Right, two.
but
two.
you're not wrong. And here's why we got to change the vernacular, man. I think what you're saying is right. And it took me, again, so I got out in 15, right? So, and I still didn't get it. And it's taken me all this time to figure out. And I gave a speech on it the other night to a group. It's about being a good teammate. That's what being a great leader is. It's not servant leadership, because that makes it sound like, yeah, of course you're there to resource your people so that they can, but it puts you in this subservient position. And I don't want people to be subservient to me, and I don't want to be subservient to them. And followership, again, puts you in a subservient position. I want to be a good teammate. We all got different roles on the team, right? When I talk to professional sports coaches, I talk to them about, they always ask me about the hierarchy and the leadership. And I said, in the best organizations and the best units I was in, it wasn't about hierarchy. It was about being a good teammate. My role on the team sometimes is giving mission, vision, guidance. But once we hit the ground, yeah, I may be way less important than the breacher. I may be way less important than the guys in support by fire. At that moment, they're more important. And I just need to be a good teammate and play my role, or whatever role the organization needs. But that's not about being a servant, and that's not about being a follower. That's about recognizing in the moment, where do I need to be as a good teammate? And something that we never talk about in any of our military schools is, am I being a good teammate? And quite honestly, again, I'm kind of pro NCO and anti-officer, even though I was one. We are not great teammates because we're constantly competing with each other. You guys are great teammates because you're lifting each other up as you climb, right? We're competing, we're stepping on each other to get up. You guys are all working together to move forward. So I would argue, and I know that this is, it's academia, so you got to tell academics what they need to hear, and you got to tell the military what it needs to hear. But I'm going to tell you that as you continue to roll on in being a senior leader, just be a good teammate. And sometimes that's about, hey, I got to make sure this is my role, and I'm going to do my role well as a good teammate. And sometimes my role is not as important. But I loved what you said. We try to put these things in these tight little, neat little boxes so it's easier for leaders. But the truth is, we don't need to create something new. It's about being a good teammate and making sure that people want to be on your team.
Yeah, that's great. I truly appreciate it. I think it's, we hear that a lot. We use these vernaculars that are, those buzzwords, they're typical to our profession. And do we truly believe that way? And I agree with everything you said 100%. It makes it feel like, they're serving to us, and it's absolutely, not the case. So it's like the word of empowerment. Some make the argument that to empower somebody, that means you took the power away from them. So do we ever take the power away from the NCOs? We keep saying empower leaders, but we never took the power away.
That's it.
But it's just one of those words that those 3-syllable words. Oh, it's a big word, and I agree. They're old terms, but they're terms that most people like to hear, and they get us A's in our papers. So I'll close with that.
Well, yeah. So you got to make sure you cite the right stuff, and make sure that I read it.
Sure.
I read it. See, look, and no, thanks, JC, for that feedback as well. He was a little relieved when you said that you came in 2003, because that's when he came in. He's a dinosaur too. But
I did. I texted him. I said, "Holy crap! I feel old." When he comes in Sergeant Major Academy, came in 03.
Yeah. All right. So who's next? Are we going with Pat, Greg, or Maria?
Pat.
All right. Pat can go next. All right. So here we got Pat. Pat, tell us your leadership story and what you got going on.
All right. Hey, thanks, Nick. Good evening, fellow veterans track talkers. I want to thank Nick there for bringing our group on and allowing us to share our leadership story with the viewers. Again, my name is Pat Baker. I'm a Master Sergeant here in the United States Army Sergeant Major's Academy, and I'm soon fixing to graduate and head to South Korea. We were talking about a little bit of PCS, and this will be my first official PCS minus coming from Fort Bragg to Fort Bliss. So a big change for myself and my family here to come. So what I'm going to talk about, a little bit of my experiences throughout the military that I've been in. I came in 2004. Make you feel a little bit old there, Glick. A little younger than Dan. And then talk about the crucible events that I've experienced throughout my life coming in as a young man, and then kind of what a crucible event is. All right, so crucible events, kind of like the phoenix rising from the ashes, stronger and more prepared than they were prior. It's a severe test or trial, oftentimes unplanned. Now, coming into the military was a bit planned. I was being scouted to be a D1 football player, and life happened. My father and I didn't agree. I fell in love with my wife now, a high school sweetheart, and a Future Farmers of America summer camp, Cherry Point, Myrtle Beach. And then from that point on, she's been my ride or die right hand from that point forward. So that was my first crucible event. Wasn't going to be able to go play football anymore. Needed to be able to take care of my soon-to-be wife. So I joined the Army. And when I did that, I went down to the old Met Station. The things that they had money for was being a cook and jumping out of airplanes. I said, cool, that gives me $16,000 right off the bat. Sign me up. So that's where I was. All right, so joining at a young age and being super sheltered. Like I said, 2004, born and raised in the same state, as well as my wife. She's born and raised right there in Florence. So I had not seen a lot. Never even got on an airplane for the first time until I jumped out of it in Fort Benning, Georgia, the summer of 2005. Then my first and second deployments. I was only 18 years old. I was in the 82nd Airborne Division, and I'd been in the 82nd for about 4 months when I got there. And we're going out in the first rotation. We're standing at roll call about 2:30 in the morning. It's just my wife and I, no kids yet. And then I see the roll call begins to start, and kids are being ripped away from their families. Husbands are having kids ripped off of them. They go sit on the bus, never to see it again. Some of them are thinking, we don't know what we're fixing to go and do. It was at that moment, it was one of the second crucial events I kind of witnessed. I was like, you know what? I don't want to have to put my kids, my future kids through that type of event. And at that point, my wife and I decided, hey, this stuff's got to calm down before we have kids. And we were 10 years married before we had our first child, Bryce. That takes me to number 3, one of the crucial events. So I'm a Bragg baby, like I already alluded to. I've been there my entire career until coming now. And I'm just started my 17th year in the military. So I was there for 16 years. And what happened in that is I had the opportunity to be selected to one of the special missions unit there at Fort Bragg, where I spent the rest of my career during that time. And in that time, had a lot of trying events. I had the opportunity to go to a lot of special schools that a food service specialist, which is what I am, I'm a cook in the military, would not have gotten to traditionally do. I'm a master rated static line jump master. I'm a master rated free fall jump master, as well as accelerated free fall instructor. None of which I don't think a cook in the Army has at this point. But what I took with that is I've allowed, I have encouraged my fellow food service specialists throughout the Army, like, hey, you can go and you can do a lot more things than what the Army tries to put you in this little box and say that you're, supposed to be able to do. And having my first child, that's the next crucial event. I was still a very young man. My wife, a very young woman at the time. She was completing her master's program at the University of North Carolina, Pembroke. And I wasn't ready to share her. I didn't really quite know how to rotate my priorities. And basically what it came down to was transferring from selfishness to selflessness. And it was not about me anymore. It was about taking care of my child and my wife, and what that looked like from the outside. It was a bit of a challenge. And then the difference in having my little girl. So Bryce was born in 2013, and then Bella was born in 2017. Renee and I both wanted to make sure there wasn't a huge gap. We're both of siblings of 3. She's the oldest, I'm the oldest, but I have a gap between my brother and I of almost 9 years, and she has hers of only 3 to 4. So we decided we wanted them to be a lot closer than my brother and I. All right, then reprioritizing the Army profession. What COVID did for a lot of folks that were close to the retirement time frame is it made them see that their family life was much more important and had been gone lacking during the time that we've been in the military. That did so with me. I'm not at the illustrious time in the Army where I can say, hey, cool, thank you for your time. I'm punching out now. But it did help me recalibrate my priorities and my work-life balance and what that looks like. And then I wanted to kind of touch on that. We've all seen it on social media, 22 a day, the suicides and what that has. Well, to me, that kind of connects to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and that sense of belonging, right? When we're in the largest brotherhood that there is with regards to the Army and what they have. So when those guys and gals, they remove themselves from the military, they're now losing that sense of belonging. And I feel like that we have to do our best to be able to connect with those individuals so we can, draw that number down. So this takes me to my leadership trait, like Nick was talking about. We've had a lot of these leadership theories kind of thrown at us. So the one that I identify with the most is that authentic leadership style. It takes a little bit of everything: servant leadership, followership, humble leadership, and kind of meshes it all up into one. And the reason I say that is because much like Glick, the servant leadership, I get it. I understand the concepts behind it, love the brother and serving them and stuff, but it's a 1990s theory. This is 2022. And we've got soldiers and stuff coming in now that are much more savvy, tech savvy. They're questioning everything. So being that authentic person, that authentic leader is what I believe is going to be more impactful going forward in our career with the guys that are coming in. And this kind of wraps all up in being that moral, legal, ethical leader. And then basically the video's got to follow the audio. What you're saying and what you're telling these guys and gals in the formations has to be followed with what you're doing physically when you are, when you think you're not being seen. But I'll pause there. If anybody's got some comments or questions, I appreciate your time, Nick, and Veteran Trash Talkers. Thanks.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, you hit it on the head, especially with COVID. I think in active duty, suicide went up 30% in 2021, not just veterans. So again, I felt, and I tell people this all the time in the MLS program, because I've been doing it for 2 years, because I didn't have to rush it. And I was like, I literally started all of this with all of that reading, and just trying to actually have action, because the best definition I heard of empathy was in this program, where it was empathy leads to action. If it doesn't lead to action, then you're pretty much just feeling sorry for the person, right? Like, so it's like, are we going to do anything about it? But I do have to take the big Earl's take on it, because I am more of the comedian. I do like how you one up Danny there. So Danny talked about being a jump master, and you just right away threw out the halo. Like, I love that. That's perfect. So it's like, it's a good one upper there. But hey, JC, what do you got?
We went back and forth to that throughout the year. I love it.
So there's a couple things here, and offline, Pat, I'd love to talk to you about. So I'm writing a paper right now that says Maslow is wrong. That at the base of human requirements is connection. And I have actually a number of studies that say that it's not air, food, water. It's those things are automatic. Those are parasympathetic nerve systems. The other stuff that matters to people are connection. So I'm with you on that. Authenticity. I think is imperative, right? And I go with, you know, the 4 traits of a leader are empathy, humility, loyalty, and curiosity. But, you know, I've got this great wife who went, yeah, you can fake all that crap. And I said, nope, you're right. It's got to be about being authentic always. So I think you're spot on there. The video matching the audio is an interesting, it's an interesting idea, and it's a little flawed. I like everything you said, because you made every struggle was a victory, but every failure has to be a victory as well. And I was a better leader because I screwed up so much stuff. And when I screw up stuff, I'm better at leading guys and having empathy for guys that screw up other stuff. So there was once this time that, and I'll go quick, but I had parents say, geez, how can I tell my kids not to do this when I did it? Well, of course you can tell them not to do it, because you learn that it was stupid to do. So the video matching the audio, it's got to always look forward. It's not always present, and it can never be back, because I can tell you not to do stuff that I've done because it was stupid. I can tell you probably tomorrow the stupid stuff I did today. And I'm very comfortable saying, I know that I'm telling you to do this, and I didn't do it right yesterday. But knowing what's right for someone else because you failed at it is such an important part of leadership. And it's something that we're not really kind to ourselves, and we have to be kind to ourselves so we can be kind to others. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely, it does. But you're kind to yourself and kind to people. Almost gets that servant leadership part. What you said you did, like with loving each other. I'd be curious to read your book there with Maslow's hierarchy. Obviously, it's a very basic, triangle, right? So,
Yeah.
food, water, shelter, so on.
Yeah.
But no, I thanks for the pointers. I appreciate it.
I think he wants to chat with you offline to help out with the paper. So
That's fine.
yeah.
I can always use more ideas, because I probably don't have it right.
Yeah, there you go. All right, who we got going next? Is it Maria or Greg? Okay, Maria's going to go next. Awesome. So here we actually have the sergeant major on now, so no pressure. You have to do better than the master sergeants. Maria's a proven leader, and we look forward to her leadership story and how she's using, or how she characterizes what she does as successful. Go ahead, Maria.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you all just ended your talks with authentic leadership, because I'll tell you, and everyone else can tell you here, my leadership story is always all over the place, because to me, it's not really a story, so to speak. It's just me speaking my life, right? And so again, Maria von Zalewski. I'm sure Nick didn't say my last name on purpose, but let's see.
You get it right about 6 out of 10 times. So
I originally joined in '98, so don't worry, you all are not. I joined the reserves in '98, and I grew up rough neighborhood, oldest of 5, single mom, humble beginnings. And that word humble right there, we talk about the most important characteristic, and for me it has always been authenticity, humility, gratitude, all of those things. A lot of times I think in the military, we develop this tough outer shell, so words like that, a lot of times people don't want to use them. That makes them feel like they're looking soft, but those are the things that make you a great leader. Those are the things that make me look at other leaders. Man, that's a humble guy right there. He is really good at what he does, but he's not even going to give himself as much credit as everybody else. I'm drawn to people like that. And so, I think it's just, that's because how I am myself. I kind of had to be growing up. I can see the comments coming up, but I can't read them right now because I want
Pat's got to go. So
oh, okay.
He said goodbye.
But again, humble beginnings. And so I ended up having to choose, I wouldn't say I'm that go to war, go to jail, but I could have been that person. I decided to take a chance and do, this Army life because I didn't have any structure. I, didn't have a father in the house to tell me, stay home and instill discipline in me. And so, luckily I had a great mom who taught me a lot of great characteristics, enough to let me know within myself that I needed to probably do something like the Army. And here I am, like I said, I joined in 98. I had a break in service. We talk about mistakes. I made a bunch of those mistakes. I'll just say, I joined in 98, and due to some mistakes, I had to have a break in service. But I came back in 2005, and I fixed any issues that I had made in the past. I think it was due to some, I wasn't aware of who I was. I needed to do some self-reflection, and I needed to do some growing, and I did that. And I came back in 2005, and here I am now as a sergeant major, first generation college graduate. And so I am very humble, but I do recognize my, strengths and the things that I had to overcome to get to where I am now. And I say all of that though, just to say that it is those things, like you mentioned, was the mistakes, that build you as a leader. And I think that's what it was for me. Of course, my mom was probably the most influential, leader for me growing up. She was a leader in our household. Outside of our household, everybody respected my mom. Everybody still does till this day. But that's pretty much all I had. I had just my mom, and then of course, being the oldest, I had to be that leader and step in. And I currently have a sister in the Army now, just promoted to Sergeant First Class. And so I have a brother who also joined. He's already out now, but I'd like to think that I kind of, set those footsteps in place by setting a good example for them. And so I just do the same thing in the uniform for my soldiers and those that have the privilege of leading. Not to say that I treat them like my children or like they're my siblings, although they are my brothers and sisters in arms. I just am authentic. I love that word. We say servant leadership. I love authentic leadership. I'm very big on the just keep it real way of thinking and acting and being. And so, yeah, that's pretty much been my whole military career, is just me. I don't have a plan. I never have a plan when I'm going day to day. It might be a good day. It might be a hectic day, but I just go in there and Charlie Mike, I don't try to go against the grain. I don't think that as leaders, we have to go in there being competitive with each other. We all have our own steps, in life and our own paths. And I don't think that mine is identical to anyone else's. And so I take everything day by day, and, whatever comes. But I'm very big on keeping God and family first. You could say that's a very big, conservative way of thinking. But I am very much the same person I am. Well, I don't want to say the same person I am in uniform I am at home, because I'm not. My husband's also a sergeant major in the Army right now. And we both have the privilege of working at the Sergeant Major's Academy. But what does that mean? In the home, we keep work at work, and we come back home, and we're just, we balance each other out. We have to find a balance to where we're not kind of bringing work home and dumping it on each other or dumping it on their kids. But we do a pretty good job. We were both drill sergeants at the same time. We were both first sergeants at the same time. Now we're both sergeant majors at the same time. My kids might have a little bit different view on that. I have a daughter, 19, and a son who's 21. She's also a UTEP grad. But, I think we have a very strong family bond, and we talk self-awareness. We talk about all these leadership characteristics and principles at home with our kids as well. Even that Myers-Briggs that we did, Nick, in the course, you know, we did the Myers-Briggs personality test. I brought that same thing right home to the most important people that keep me, you know, my rocks, basically, because I want to know about them just as much as I do my soldiers. And so I think the most important thing about everything that we do as leaders is you have to give a crap. You know, you have to care about your soldiers, because when, you know, I'm trying not to use any, you know, bad language here, but when
It's
the
your
going
grade,
gets
not
tough-
mine.
when the
So-
going gets tough, you know, something were to happen right now, you know, my daughter always says, oh man, what if, you know, North Korea or anything were to go down with Russia, what would we do? And, you know, I try to give her the politically correct answer, you know, everything will be okay. But, you know, just imagine if shit hit the fan, what would we do? And who would we be looking at? And it's those people to our left and right. And so I think you just got to care about them. You have to treat everybody with dignity and respect at the end of the day. And to me, that's all leadership is just taking care of people, caring for people, doing everything with love. And that's it. And that's Maria V in a nutshell, just my mentality, just freestyling. Hopefully I wasn't all over the place, but like I said, I'm not real big on scripting out my stuff or anything like that. Just, if you ask me why I'm here, where I am right now, you know, Sergeant Major, after actually only 19 years, it's because of all of those things I just said. So hopefully that connected with someone. I take a lot of pride in being, you know, the oldest in my family. I take a lot of pride in being a Mexican, Latina, you know, especially here in El Paso, it's big, and a female and a sergeant major. Those are like my things. Of course, a wife and a mom, love that. But I spend most of my time in my uniform, more time in my uniform than I do out. So I am looking forward to the day when I can hang it up and share a seat at the table with gentlemen such as yourselves. But I do hope to continue to inspire others and talk leadership until I'm no longer on this beautiful earth. And
Yeah,
I'm trying to do that now by connecting with some of our professors because, you know, outside the uniform, I don't want to be, I saw a picture the other day of a veteran with his M16 in the tub, you know, still thinking back on his old days. I don't want to be that person. I want to continue to inspire and lead and motivate. And that's just my passion. It's just something I've always been very passionate about.
Well, Maria, you know what you sound like as a podcaster. So I got a spot for you as soon as you get out.
That's all I got for you guys, though. I hope everything, like I said, I hope I wasn't all chopped up all over the place. If I was,
no, it made sense. And Len Clark, the host of our Throat Punch Monday, she says way to go and all that stuff. And that's something that when we started Veteran Trash Talk, we didn't realize the women audience that we were going to have. Like, we had zero clue, and all of a sudden it was like pow, pow, pow. It's like, oh, okay, this is going to happen, you know. So like, you embrace the ambiguity of it and you just send it, right? That's what we kind of say. But you bring up your story kind of reminds me of back in my immature days, which was like yesterday. You know, I always thought like you were a born leader when I was younger and cockier, and you know, this guy sucks, I'm better than him, he doesn't have what it takes. You know, this, that, and that. And then as you do mature and you realize that leadership's a learned trait, and that sometimes you're forced to learn it really quickly. Probably why I was so immature about it was because I had a very sheltered upbringing, and I didn't have to learn it right away. You know, I got to just follow, and I got to take advantage of the leaders I had in front of me. And then it was like, wait a minute, got to develop these people, got to develop these leaders. So just my personal take on your story is that you were put in a position of leadership, whether you wanted it or not, right away. And, you know, you took it, you ran with it. And now, I mean, what you just said isn't bragging, right? It's literally what has happened because you took it.
Yeah, it's my story of survival. You know, my like I said, my mom was a single mom, and she had my mom has 5 kids, you know, me being the oldest. I mean, we found ourselves in shelters, you know, I mean, all kinds of different. This I could probably write a book, you know.
Do it.
No, I'm tired of writing after, you know, after this school experience, but you know, but like you all were talking about earlier, I think all of those things, it's just what you do with those experiences. Because trust me, I have friends that had similar upbringings and they are on a completely different, you know, path, whether I mean, I could roll back home and drive through my neighborhood and see all kinds of, you know, you could probably imagine, you know, heroin addicts and meth addicts and you name it. And so I think it's just what you do with it. And hopefully, I pray that somebody inspirational comes across these people's lives at some point, if they are starting that way when they're coming up. Because that's all it took for me, was just having a strong mom, you know, that I could should help me reel me in, you know, and tell me, like, do you want to be this or do you want to be that? It's up to you. And so
Nice, yeah. So Len wants you on the show. She already said that in the chat. But all right, JC.
I bet. I think there's a lot there, and I absolutely think it's a book that people need to read. 2 things that I want to talk about real quick. One, what do you think the highest form of love is?
I think the highest form of love is self-love. I think everything comes from that. I think if you don't love yourself, it's kind of hard for you to love others. And I know I can say that from, you know, being in relationships, my husband, my ex-husband. I just let y'all know I'm, you know, second marriage, but yeah, you know, I just think, and when I say I have kids, I think I mentioned I have 19 and an 18-year-old. They're my stepkids. I've been blessed with them for the past, I think since they were 10, they came to live with us. I had to push all of my insecurities and thoughts of being a stepmom to the side, not being a real mom, you know, how society likes to frame it, in order to love them stronger. So, you know, that's just one example. But I think that self-love is the highest form of love, and everything else flows from that.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Let me give you another perspective on that. I think the highest form of love is acceptance. And, you know, we talk about loving our soldiers. We talk about loving our neighbor, loving people around us. That doesn't look, that's not appreciate. That's not always like even want to tolerate. That's just accepting, right? And sometimes people make it hard. But it's something that I talk to leaders about, is all you have to do is accept where they are. That doesn't mean you don't want to make them better, but accept who they are, where they are. The second thing, and I'm sure you're doing this, I think it's a really cool thing to talk about. And I always talk about senior leaders. I always talk to senior leaders about this. I actually used to talk about it with senior leaders in the military. Your relationship with religion has to be separate than your leadership. Right? It's your relationship, because you're going to have soldiers that are Wiccans and are atheists and are Buddhists, and right. And they can know that you care about that. But the truth is, if they think that takes too much of who you are, they won't talk to you. So there are things, just like in the military, we're really good at not talking about our political views. Well, we're not real good at that, but we're not supposed to be talking about our political views. What we're really bad at is kind of, we proselytize a little bit, especially in the military. And what we see is soldiers are not comfortable going to certain leaders because, well, they're going to judge me because I'm not being, and I don't think that's who you are. But I think that when when we go into these places and we take command sergeant major, we've got to be really thoughtful on, I lead everybody. So all my beliefs are completely secondary to what they need. And I actually use this with an organization I'm working with today. We don't get to be the leader we want to be. We must be the leader that people need. So I have to look at my formation and go, I know who I am. That can stay me. I know who they need. This is what I have to do right now. Just something to think about.
Yeah, I actually, of course, like I said, being a drill sergeant, you receive all, people from all walks of life. And so that is something that I was cognizant of whenever I was leading troops as a drill sergeant, and then of course as a first sergeant, and now, yes.
Where were you at drill?
Fort Jackson.
What battalion?
213th.
Oh, sorry.
And not 239, not AAAO.
You weren't
No.
AAA.
Actually, I
No.
think my husband was.
No AAAO. Yeah.
What was
But no, I
That's
did
the only
get
battalion
the Wiccan soldiers, and just atheist soldiers and stuff like that. So yes, I am somewhat aware of that, and to just kind of be careful with that, especially the politics, and especially working at the United States Army Sergeant Majors Academy. A bunch of retired folks there and stuff, so that's something that we talk about there, is just being aware of that. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Maria. That was an awesome story.
Thank you, Nick.
Now Greg gets to follow that up. All right. So let's hope that pleasure.
Oh,
And then
Greg will be
again,
good.
just so if you just started watching, Greg's the last one of the night, but these are leaders that are graduating with a master's in leadership studies from the University of Texas El Paso, i.e. the Yale of the Southwest. And they're also about to be graduates from the Sergeant Majors Academy, which Maria's already graduated from, and we talked about that. But all right, Greg, the floor is yours. Tell us your leadership story.
All right, man. EOD showing up last, right?
Yeah, exactly. You had to wait for the route to be cleared.
Yeah, exactly.
Your job.
Yeah, so thanks. I won't reiterate all that, but thanks everybody for having us on and hosting it. First and foremost, I am an EOD guy, so explosive ordnance disposal. For those who don't know, I'll say experiences will vary with your EOD support out there. That's what I've been preaching this whole Sergeant Major course. So with that, I'll just get started. So me and Pat have a similar story, and also not going to try and one up you guys, but you guys have mentioned a lot of things that are near and dear to my heart. So the reason me and Pat have a similar story is, I grew up in East Texas on a little dirt road, and my whole life I just wanted to join the Army. That's what my grandfather was in World War II. My dad was in during Vietnam, so it was just what we did. It was what you're supposed to do. And when I joined the Army, I thought everybody was waving American flags and they wanted to save the world like me, and I was in for a rude awakening because I was very sheltered. I do come from a very, very religious background, very religious family. So the culture shock of the Army was kind of the first leadership challenge I had. And that's kind of how I'm going to frame my little discussion here tonight, is just leadership challenges that I've had along the way. And I would say for the first 10 years of my career, I didn't even look at them as leadership challenges. I don't even think I accepted myself as a leader until, I was an E7, really. But I will say, I'll start off with, I've had a lot of coaches growing up. I played baseball my whole life. I wasn't quite as good as you, Nick. I did not get a big time scholarship or drafted, or else I wouldn't be here right now.
It's free agent selection. It's okay.
But honestly, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be where I am today without my dad as a leadership. My first leader. He was the rock. He is the rock of our family. And I mean, every day I go through something and I think back on things he taught me when I was a kid, or just watching him growing up, and the way he interacted with people really set the foundation for how I am as a man and as a soldier and as a leader. So, first and foremost, that's probably the first leader that comes to mind when I think of my leadership journey. And then I joined in 2003 too, so I guess I'm a youngin' to you guys, but I hit 19 years in August, so I'm nearing the end. Shortly after joining the Army, I switched over to EOD and went down to Florida. Our AIT is about a year long in Destin, Florida, so that's probably one of the toughest locations you can be at. And I had never been out of East Texas, to be honest. We've never been out of the South, and so sitting at EOD school, I said, man, as long as it's nowhere cold, I'll be fine. And I got orders to Anchorage, Alaska. So went up there to Anchorage, Alaska. First time I ever saw snow. April 5th, 2005. Saw snow for the first time in my life. And it was odd how the Army did it. I still don't understand why they did it. So it's 2005. IEDs had just really hit the scene and become a big deal. And they sent me by myself to a unit that had just redeployed from Iraq, probably 5 days, 7 days prior. So we weren't going anywhere because we were the only EOD unit in Alaska. So I ended up staying up in Alaska for 3 years before I deployed. And just to familiarize you with EOD, and as part of my leadership is, we get put on 2-man teams. So it's just you and, it'd be an E3, E4 with a E6 staff sergeant. So you become very, very close with your team leader or team member. And so I spent 3 years with the same staff sergeant, same guy. He was a sergeant at the time, got promoted, has since went on to OCS, doing great things and all that good stuff. But learning leadership qualities just right out of the bat. Every leader, every location I've been, every scenario I've been, there's been a leader that's I call it taking me under his wing or her wing. And I've been grateful to have really, really great leaders. And towards the end of that tour in Alaska, we actually got put on orders to go to Afghanistan, go to RC East, and it was my first deployment. And you guys remember at that time, if you were EOD and you had a pulse, you got promoted. So I was a staff sergeant, so I was actually a team leader at the time. So I had a team member with me. And again, if you remember back a couple minutes ago, at that point, I didn't look at myself as a leader, and I wasn't really taught that. I was more taught, hey, you're about to go to Afghanistan, try not to die, because you're gonna be putting your hands on bombs and all that stuff. So my first deployment, and this is kind of where I get into the leadership challenges. I look back on that first deployment, and it was just pure survival for me. I didn't think about developing others, and of course circumstances are different. I had one soldier, and in EOD it's just a team. So I think that was a small failure on my part as far as just not accepting, hey, you're the team leader. Like, leadership is in the word there, so you should probably think about doing something. But picked that up and got back home, went and did some instructing time, and then I went up to Fort Campbell, and I'd picked up E7 too, and so I deployed again, back to the same place, good old RC East, and it's like I have a vacation home there. So during that deployment, one thing I'll point out is we had just got there, and my first team member that I ever had when I got up to Alaska, got promoted to staff sergeant. My first team leader I ever had his name is Josh Bowden. And at that point, years later, he had made his way up. He was a staff sergeant at the time. He was supporting SOF and doing all that cool guy stuff. And he came and saw me one day, and we chatted for a while. And I said, hey man, be careful out there. And about 3 days later, he got shot, got killed in Afghanistan. And I was sitting there when his name came across the banner as a KIA. Man, it hit me hard, as it does all of us. And that's when I was thinking, did I do enough? Did I teach enough? Did I should have told him something else. But that's the event that really changed something in my head, that leadership is not a role, and it's not a position. And it's, I shouldn't look at it as, oh, I should take this leadership responsibility so I can get promoted, or I can go to a cool school. It's a responsibility. And ever since that day, it kind of just changed my outlook on leadership. And thankfully so for future events. Came home from that deployment. A couple of years go by, PCS like 17 more times. And the next big event for me, it's not a war story this time, but like the birth of my kids. I got 2 kids really close together, about 17 months apart. And my dad always told me, oh, it'll change you, it'll change you. And it really did. It just reinforced the fact that you have a responsibility as a leader, whether that be a husband, a father, a soldier, a mother, grandfather, whatever it is. That responsibility is there. And so you know, that was another event along my leadership journey that I think helped mold me and kind of turn me into a better leader, is just, you know, caring for people and, you know, trying to connect and trying to communicate in different ways. And that was about the same. That was right after I was an instructor. And then during my instructor time, I had someone tell, much like Glick said just a minute ago, they told me, stop trying to teach everyone the same way. Like, everybody learns different. And it just, you know, all these years and experiences start adding up. And I'm like, that, I mean, it's the same way in life. Everybody's different. I can't expect soldiers to adapt to me. I need to adapt to them. I have to be able to change my leadership style depending on who I'm talking to. So again, years roll on. I had the luxury of being selected as one of the first EOD OCs to go to NTC. I hate the desert, by the way. I love the water. So when that's very sarcastic when I say that, but so I went out to NTC. I did about 10 rotations on the engineer team out there. And so I got to see a lot of first sergeants come through, sergeant majors, you know, platoon sergeants, all that good stuff. And at that time, I had really started taking on, you know, how I want to be, how I should be. So tips and tricks and, you know, writing in my little green book, things to take on with me. And it wasn't long after that, you know, there's a reason I only did 10 rotations. I pinned on my diamond, and they said, hey, you're going to the EOD unit here at Irwin. And my first thought was, cool, you know, it's not a deployable unit, so I don't have to leave again. And then obviously, because you know, I have such good luck, they said, hey, you're deploying this unit after like 8 years of inactivity. So we deployed a few years ago to Iraq and Syria doing that mission. And that's when, you know, the weight of the diamond kind of hit me. And I, you know, no longer is it, can I sit back as an OC and make tips and tricks and, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I'm not a sergeant first class, you know, everybody in the room is looking at me. And at that point, it's like, hey, you know, it's time to sit down at the table and own it. And I tried to do that the best that I could. And the one thing I'll point out of being a first sergeant, something I would love to, you know, I try and tell everybody is, they always tell us to have a mentor, you know, look at the sergeant majors above you, talk to old guys, you know, pick their brains. But honestly, one of my biggest mentors, now I texted him earlier, I said, hey, I'm gonna use your name. Mark Reno is his name. He was my ops guy. He's E7. He was a platoon sergeant, then I moved him into ops. During my I only did 24 months, but during my 24-month first sergeant time, I mean, I don't know, it was quite often. You know, I would pull him in the office and I would bounce ideas off of him. And again, I know, you know, as far as military talk, units are different, but, you know, an EOD unit has about a whopping, you know, 40 folks in it. So we're pretty small, very close knit. And one of the first things that Mark told me, you know, I was complaining about something we were having to do. And he said, hey, look down. And I looked down and he pointed at my rank and he said, it's you make a decision and change it. And so it's like my whole career was in, you know, slow motion until that point. And then it's like, okay, yep, I'm owning it now. I'm owning my own leadership. And from that point on, you know, I kind of started rolling pretty good. But one thing I'll say on that note is, you know, sometimes mentors, yeah, it's good to have mentors, people who've been there, done that. But I would never discredit the folks that are work underneath you. You know, I don't like that word either, but just that whole mentality of like everybody's sitting at the table. So, I mean, you made it here, you have a voice, and that's how I like to treat everybody, or try to. And there's a time and place for everything. I got that, military disciplines and standards. But, you know, I think Danny alluded to it earlier. Folks that are coming to the Army these days, they're smart, way smarter than we are. It took me 12 years to get a bachelor's degree, and, you know, this 1 year to get a master's degree, but, you know, value their opinions and don't be afraid to like bounce ideas off junior ranking people, and those officers too, same way, you know, because we're, like Danny said, we're all in this together, and, you know, you got to make it worth it. So, on that deployment, that's the other thing. I had one WIA shortly after getting there, and, that like looking back, spending this year going through this leadership, development course. I never have really looked at myself in kind of an objective lens, doing the Miggs Breyer and all those personality tests and all those things we had to do. But how I reacted in those situations, when I had my first, beating on the door, hey, one of your guys got hurt and he was in a landmine field, and I'm like, well, that's not good. You're an EOD guy, so you probably don't have any legs anymore. And that's comes with the job. We know that stuff happens. Turns out that is not what happened. I figured Nick would like this. He actually stepped into a tank ditch. It was blackout, and he just was walking and down into a tank ditch, like, 10, 12 feet. So completely shattered his leg and all that. But still the reaction is the same. All these moments lead up to everybody turns and looks at you and they're like, hey, EOD guy, it's your guy. What are you going to do? How are you going to react to this? And, thankfully I didn't panic, but inside was definitely panicking because that was the first time I'd had one of my soldiers get hurt. So just another event, another big, war story, if you will, where using all those years and all those tips and tricks, and it's like, hey, it's time to make it happen now. You gotta make the money, because you're the guy making the calls. So that was just a war story, but part of my leadership story, I guess, as you will, just events that have unfolded that I've been a part of. And lastly, and I'll wrap it up with this last event. I'm calling the Sergeant Major Academy my last event. Coming into the Sergeant Major Academy, it was, hey, I'm gonna be a Sergeant Major and I'm gonna do all this great stuff and it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna get a pay raise. Coming through this academy, it's almost, it's gonna sound bad, but it's almost been the opposite. It's almost been an eye-opener in the sense that, no matter what cool stuff I've done or how cool EOD is, as I always get made fun of, but, I'm just a number and I'm a leader right now, but, next month, I may not be. I may be, I'm going to be on a staff up at Fort Carson. I'm not going to be in charge of a ton of people doing wild things. So being able to untie yourself, your personal self from that position. I think that's what I've learned here in the Sergeant Major Academy most, and meeting a bunch of folks outside of my realm that I'm used to being with. It's really shown me that we are just one giant team, and a lot of us think the same way, and we're on the same page. So that team building mentality and just using each other to bounce ideas off of, and those tips and tricks as leaders, I think that's very important. So yeah, that's it. And then for my to check the block on my little UTEP thing, I like transformational leadership. I picked it. I actually taught the class. I think Nick was in there. It's like a new coin term in academia, I guess, but essentially it's just the development of others. And that's the other thing that I've learned here at the Sergeant Major Academy is that I think I used to be a transactional leader, or I was a very transactional leader where, hey, you get some stuff done and this is going to happen, whereas now I look at things more so, here's an opportunity to learn, and me, you, everybody, and getting into the growth mindset, not being so fixated and task oriented. Just look at it more from a development standpoint, because we're all, we all went through the GWAT years, and we realize, I feel like us as leaders, we know what's important and we know what's not. Ultimately, it's the Army that makes the call, but inserting some common sense and using every opportunity to develop people so that they can go make decisions when I'm not around. And that's kind of the point of untying myself from that position is developing others so that when I'm not here, Danny's not here, Maria's not around, they have the trust and confidence in themselves to go make those decisions. So, yeah, that's
all right. Yeah, it's a good lead into the common sense. So the 5th Principal Patrolling Podcast will be on tour on Saturday in Bloomington, Illinois, which is common sense for those of you who haven't been to the Army's premier leadership school. But I do have to poke fun at you a little bit. I'll have to have Danny answer this. But Danny, did Greg wear his EOD patch on campus?
Whole time.
Yes.
I think he did. I think it's a requirement for them. I
Right,
think
when
it's
you're
like
one
a
of the top
acceptable
40, it's
item.
like the president's 100,
The-
right? Like,
It's a requirement.
yeah, you got to
Yeah.
wear it so that everybody knows that you're
Yeah,
EOD,
otherwise, how would
right?
you know?
How would you know
Otherwise,
that
how
you're a
would you know?
genius?
Can't grow
my hair
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know, awesome story, Greg. I appreciate it. Kind of hit home with me a little bit with when you left the OC life, and then we're like, yeah, I can't be observing anymore. I'm supposed to actually be leading these guys. Same thing happened after a ranger instructor. Is like when I left, it's like I'm sitting here like kind of like just observing, and then kind of like almost like grading them when it's like, wait a minute, I'm the one that's supposed to be in charge of this, making it happen. So yeah, JC, what you got?
So, hey, first of all, on the mentorship thing, I think you got mentorship right. I mean, today as a 21-year-old man, I'm going to tell you that I have mentors who are 20 years my junior because they know things and they see things that are different than I do, and I talk to them. I have people who are peers who are mentors because they have different experiences. So I think you're right on that. I want to talk to you about duty versus responsibility, because you said I have a responsibility, and I'm going to tell you that leaders don't have a responsibility, they have a duty. Well, or they have a responsibility, but it comes after the duty. So duty comes from the Latin debere, which means obligation, and responsibility comes from the Latin respondere, which means how you respond. So one is active and one is after, right? So what do I do before and what do I do after? So look at, I have a duty to do this, an obligation, that's beforehand. And then I am responsible for the outcomes. Even when I'm not accountable, I am responsible, right? So a guy goes somewhere else and works for somebody else, they're accountable to that person, but you are responsible for those things. And I think that we have to start looking at leadership in a very active way and say that it's a duty. It's not a responsibility. It's a duty. It's a sacred duty to be there. And the most important, I'm going to just challenge you on one thing where initially you were, you had one guy in your deployment and, you were really just trying to survive. The most sacred duty that a leader has is to create courage in their people. That's all. That's quite honestly, that's all they got to do is create courage, because everything that stops people is fear. So the one thing you got to do as a leader is create courage. And if you're doing that, you're leading. If you're creating courage in others, you're leading. It's also one of the hardest things to do because you ain't getting rid of fear. Fear doesn't disappear. You just got to create something better. So, take it as your sacred duty to make sure that you're creating courage, and all the other stuff will come.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and a few commenters. I don't think anybody was monitoring Gruntwork, so maybe Chris was. Don't know if anything was on there, but Danny, Greg, Maria, congratulations on your masters. And look forward. You guys ever want to come on the show? And or I know Maria will probably be in contact with Len after this because she keeps hitting me up, wants you on the show. But and then big thanks to JC. Go check him out. Say your two books again.
Meditations of an Army Ranger and A Light in the Darkness: Leadership for the Unknown. All
right, so go check those out. JC's been on the show before, validated, somewhat trusted, but yeah, we love them. And no, we'll see you guys on Saturday for the Trash Talk Hour. We got Mind Health Aloha coming on, mental health organization from Hawaii. So they'll be a good show. There you go, where my wife got her biology degree from. But all right, thanks for sharing your story, guys, and we'll see you guys on Saturday.
Cool, thanks.
I already said that. Oh my gosh, Chris. Yeah, Saturday, Fifth Principles live in Bloomington, Illinois for the Warrior Ride. So if you haven't donated to the Warrior Ride, just give them $1. Seriously, if everybody in the community gives them $1, we make our goal. Just $1. All right, look.